Thank you for insisting to a last presentation. It happened to be mine. And I'm going to talking about the non-timber forest product tonight. So here we are, and Taiwan is across the Pacific Ocean, and it's a very small island. And how small it is just 1/7 of Oregon. But half of the land is over 3,300 feet. And it's easily, you can drive from the coast to the high mountain, as high as Mountain Hood, the top of Mountain Hood, within 2 hours. That means we have very diverse ecosystems. And in Taiwan, we have traditional cultures and high-tech coexistence and harmony in the island. But of course, we have very delicious food. But the problem is there are too many people there. And believe me, I used to be one of them in the morning. And the population is 6 times of Oregon. But if you think there are too many people, we don't have forest, you're wrong. About 60% of the land is still covered by the forest. So we always have the challenging to find a balance between population and and sustainability. And different from Oregon, most of the land, forest land is belonged by the government. It's a very typical mountain picture in Taiwan. And we have typhoons, several ones in every year. So we have torrential rains. And we also have earthquakes that shake the island. And this island is very steep and unstable, so we have big problems of erosion and landslides. So for conservation reason, since 1990, we start to prohibit cutting. So that means we have no cutting, no logging in about 30 years. So if we are people live in or nearby this forest, what can you do for living? And we think maybe agroforestry might be the solution. So what is agroforestry? It's very simple, just combine agriculture and forestry. So you have crops and tree at the same time or at the same place. And there are 5 main agroforestry types in the US. The first one is the most common one, it's silvopasture. So you have plants and animals together. And the second one is alley cropping. So you have rows of trees, and between the trees you have crops. And riparian forest buffers, just the trees, you can protect the water from pollution or something. And also windbreaks. And the last one is forest farming. It's also called multi-story cropping, or in Taiwan and China, we call it under forest economy. This is also my interest during my study here. So what is forest farming? It's just the cultivation of some high-value specific crops under the protection of forest canopy. So that means forest canopy is very important for this kind of crop. And a very good example is the American ginseng. Most of them are planted in the east coast of the US. And some other example is honeybee or mushrooms. And you will hear me in this presentation talking about different terms like non-timber forest products and anything not timber from the forest, so we call it non-timber forest products. And a special forest product is used in the national forest system. But in my presentation, I will mainly call them non-timber forest products. They are all very similar. And here are some examples of the non-timber forest products, like berries and mushrooms or greenings, and even Christmas tree or small trees from the forest or corns. And I believe most of you in this room liked hiking. Go hiking, right? Yeah. So if one day you are hiking and you see a lot of delicious berries next to you, yeah? Have you ever thought about, can I eat them? And is that illegal to do that? So I look at the regulations permits of this system. And the answer is depending on the landowner and if you are a native people or not. And there are some different kinds of permits. What this permit means is authorization to remove the product from national forest land. And it depends on different of things. And basically, you can only harvest in the forest that issued you the permit. And if you think you have the permit, then you can get the product. No, there's no guarantee. So it's very site and product specific. And there are some different kind of permit. For example, if you are hiking in Fen-Hui National Park, National Forest, and you see a lot of blueberries there, and you want to eat immediately. In this case, you don't need a permit. You just eat them in the forest, that's fine. And if you think, oh, they are so delicious, I want to share with my family, I want to share with my kids. And in this case, because it's small amount, you can get a permit for free. But if you think, oh, I want to make some pies and sell to my neighbors, then you have to buy the permit in a small amount of money. And if you are a company, you want to collect a lot of the products, then you need a commercial contract. So it depends on how much you want, and then you have different kind of permit. And Gifford Pinchot National Forest have a good example of management of non-timber forest product. Do you buy bulbs during Christmas? And it's very possible you buy this from this national park, national forest. And this is the main product of this national forest. But another product is bear grass. For the native people, they use this for blanket. But for non-native people, they use this for flower arrangement. So these thin leaves are from bear grass. And in order to provide the public can harvest the product and sustainable, so there's some protection. They need to do some protection of the forest, the resources. So they have a good forest management plan in terms of non-timber forest product of this national forest. And besides the national forest, Bureau of Land Management, they also have a good example of this non-timber forest part like this. They have permits to hunt truffles. And for this permit, only dogs can do the job, because if you use other tools, there will be a lot of disturbance of the soil. And how much is the permit? It's $44 per pound. If you think it's very expensive, right? But you can sell your truffle as high as $400 per pound. Then you think, oh, the permit is not too expensive. So in order to harvest the non-timber forest products forever or sustainably, some restrictions is necessary, like the quantity and the specific method. Like I just mentioned, in the truffle, you can only use dogs to hunt, and some specific locations. So these restrictions are very necessary. And besides the government land, we also have a chance to visit private landowners. And Oregon Woodland Cooperative give us some good examples. They are very good at non-timber forest product. And what I learned from them is you have to be creative to find a niche market. So in summary, I think agroforestry could be a compromise way, because you have the short-term income from the crop, and at the same time, you have a long-term forestation. And in Taiwan, we are at the beginning stage of making the regulations and permit system about non-timber forest product. So what I learned here is a very good examples. I will share it with my government, and so we can write a good regulation Thank you.